What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to another episode of Caffeinate. Today, for January the 2nd of 2019. That's right, we are already 2 days in. And my name is Samuel Adams, and welcome to today's show. I hope that you all are doing very well, and for those that might be joining me for the first time, this is a daily gaming news podcast where I break down the hottest gaming news of the day, bringing you what you need to know in the industry that we do all love so very much, and I'm excited to be with you here today. Now, I will say, trying a couple of new things today. I bought a Stream Deck Mini because I sold the other one, and so now I needed one back because I missed the utilization of certain buttons. And so we're going to be testing that out today. Not going to be super in-depth, but it should be a pretty interesting show. However, this is not a tech support podcast. What are we going to be talking about today? And we have some pretty interesting news. First off, the CEO of Project Cars developer Slightly Mad Studios has teased a brand new console on Twitter, and it could be better than the one Soulja Boy was talking about a couple of days ago. On top of that, Activision Blizzard is firing its CFO, but don't worry, he won't be homeless because he's going to Netflix. It's a very strange story, but one that doesn't blow my mind because, hey, when you're with one tech company, you can be with pretty much any tech company, in my opinion. On top of that, the next Call of Duty may in fact be a sequel to one that people love very, very much. On top of that, Fallout 76's nuke codes have been hotfixed after there was a very peaceful New Year's Day. So fantastic for those that do want to blow up other people in the world of Fallout. On top of that, there are brand new Xbox One Game Pass games coming for January of 2019, and I know what those are, and I will share it with you here today. And on top of it all, it looks like the very first Pokémon movie is going to be getting its very own remake in CGI. That's right, we've been remaking video games, but now we're going to be remaking movies, and it should be a pretty good one if you are a fan of that Pokemon kind of thing. But those are pretty much the stories of the day. Again, if you're joining me for the very first time, glad to have you. And if you are watching the show later on podcast services around the world and youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia, I'm glad to have you on board, and I hope you do enjoy what you find. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's news. First off, the CEO of Project Cars developer Slightly Mad Studios is teasing a brand new console on Twitter. More details on the Mad Box are expected later this month. Strange name, hopefully they'll change that. But the CEO of Slightly Mad Studios, maker of the Project Cars franchise of simulation racing games, is teasing a new video game console on Twitter. Called the Mad Box, the device will be designed, built, marketed, and sold by an unannounced business entity, Ian Bell tells Polygon. Quote, "What is the Mad Box?" Bell asked in his sixth message sent from entirely new social media account, prompting a flurry of new followers. "It's the most powerful console ever built. It's literally mad. You want 4K? You want VR at 60 frames per second? You want a full engine for free to develop your games on it? You have it." Reached for comment, Bell said that the console would be compatible with the cross-platform game engine that Slightly Mad has used in the past, the Madness engine. Slightly Mad's marketing materials stress that it is especially well suited to VR and vehicle simulations. One curious claim Bell made on Twitter is that the console will deliver virtual reality at 60 frames per second, but that's already common for most consumer-grade VR headsets. Sony, for example, announced in 2016 that it would certify any game for the PSVR that couldn't meet that threshold. Asked by followers to clarify what he meant by this claim, Bell said the 60 FPS figure quoted was per eye. So apparently you're going to be getting 120 frames per second if you combine both eyes together. Why not just say that out of the gate? Mr. Bell? Who really knows? But 60 FPS per eye is hyper smooth with planning algorithms, Bell said to Polygon. Panning algorithms. I know nothing about VR. Panning algorithms, Bell said to Polygon, promising that more information will be made public later in January. And so the main bulk of this story here is the fact that, hey, there's another console entering the fray. And that seems to be a weird trend that's going on in the industry, especially, in 2018 and 2019, because you do see all these smaller consoles beginning to pop up. And really in the first part of 2019, you see these Soulja Boy consoles, and now this new console, the Mad Box, coming from those that made Project Cars. And It's strange because in 2019, you have three giant entities that create consoles. You have Nintendo, you have Xbox, and you have PlayStation. These are pretty much the three main competitors, and for anybody to come and try to dethrone one of these entities is largely impossible. It just, quite frankly, isn't going to happen. It's just impossible. I don't know how else to say it. You're not going to be able to outdo Sony, Xbox, or I guess Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo at their own game that they've been at for decades and decades. But with that being said, I'm sure that many people said the same thing whenever Sony first came out and released a PlayStation in competition with Nintendo and then Xbox to follow. It feels weird to me. But with that being said, if you're in the market for a brand new experimental video game console that is hyper smooth in the realm of VR, then you could be interested in the Mad Box, which is coming to us from Slightly Mad Studios at some point in the future. And again, more info is expected later on in the month. And hey, we'll talk about it right here on Caffeinate, whether it be good news or bad news, like we saw yesterday with the Soulja Boy information. But again, 4K. 60 FPS each eye VR coming to you from the Mad Box from Slightly Mad Studios. Also to Spike Tiger in the chat, welcome on in, my friend. Glad to see you. But moving on to the next story of the day, Activision Blizzard is firing its CFO, and he is reportedly off to Netflix. Activision Blizzard Chief Financial Officer Spencer Newman's contract has been terminated, the publisher announced this week. Despite a decline in monthly active users and the drop in shares that accompanied the report, Activision Blizzard says that Newman's been fired over a cause unrelated to the company's financial reporting or disclosure controls and procedures. The publisher didn't specify what the cause was, but Reuters reports that Newman was poached by Netflix and will be the streaming company's new chief financial officer. Returning CFO Dennis Durkin, who until recently was the chief corporate officer, is taking over. With the share drop, Activision Blizzard is keen to emphasize Durkin's experience and the company's growth during his earlier tenure. But even with Call of Duty Black Ops 4's popularity and the addition of the Battle Royale mode Blackout, Activision Blizzard's games aren't maintaining the kinds of populations the user wants, and the publisher wants. Destiny 2 Forsaken also didn't perform as well as it had hoped. Blizzard has also had a wobbly year in 2018. President Mike Morhaime stepped down. BlizzCon was dominated by the poorly received Diablo Immortal announcement. The Heroes of the Storm team is being scaled back and its tournaments canceled, and most recently, employees are being paid to leave in the company in an attempt to cut cost. And we talked about all of these stories on previous episodes of Caffeinate. But again, right now, you see a big shift in the corporate nature over there at Activision Blizzard. Now, when it comes down to it, is this going to impact games? No. Is this going to be one of those big, I guess, kind of forks in the road where the industry begins to talk about the future of Activision and Blizzard? No. This is all just kind of a hierarchy kind of thing, and more people are going to step in the future, and it will all more than likely be fine. But this article does bring up some interesting points, because it does seem like more and more bad news is coming about Activision Blizzard, because, quite frankly, the times they are a-changing, and Call of Duty and Destiny aren't exactly as popular as they were even 5 years ago. Of course, Destiny didn't really exist that much 5 years ago, but of course it's grown and become what it is today. But my point still stands. The industry has shifted, and different kinds of games are beginning to take precedence, and Blackout, quite frankly, hasn't been the earth-shattering, phenomenon that anybody really had expected it to be. And so with all of these things being taken into account, it's going to be an interesting 2019 for Activision Blizzard. But again, they're doing well. Even when they're having a bad day, they're still having a better day than most of the people in the gaming industry. So we'll see what the future does bring for the company. But right now, I do not believe that they are going anywhere. However, I suppose that Spencer Newman is in fact going to Netflix, so he's going somewhere. Maybe he'll bring back some of those Marvel shows that were poached or taken down, whatever you want to call them, I suppose. We'll see what that Disney streaming service is like whenever that hits next year. That should be interesting. Anyways, I digress. Speaking of Call of Duty, the next Call of Duty may be a sequel to a fan-favorite series, a return to more modern warfare. That's right, my favorite sub-franchise, I would call it, of Call of Duty. But if the established rotation for which developer is responsible for each Call of Duty game continues into 2019, then it is Infinity Ward's turn next. And a recent tweet of a skull by the company's senior communication manager Ashton Williams may confirm that it is Infinity Ward that's at the helm, and also hints at what the next Call of Duty title might be. Although there was no accompanying text, the skull itself could imply that Infinity Ward is working on Call of Duty That's right, Modern Warfare 4. Since Infinity Ward is the developer behind Call of Duty Ghost, many first suspected that the tweet was teasing Ghost 2. However, Kotaku's Jason Schreier has since claimed in a forum post that this isn't the case. Prior to Ghost and Infinite Warfare, Infinity Ward was responsible for the widely popular Modern Warfare series. Fans may recall that one of the major characters from Modern Warfare 2, Lieutenant Simon Ghost Riley, wore a skull-patterned baklava? I don't know, that's not a... He wore a bandana, let's call it that. I'm not a cultured individual. Call me what you will. Williams' tweet may be in reference to that, which could mean there's a Modern Warfare sequel starring the character scheduled for 2019. However, considering the popularity of Modern Warfare Remastered, Williams' tweet could instead just as easily be a hint that a remaster for Modern Warfare 2 is in the works as well. Infinity Ward released Modern Warfare Remastered alongside Infinite Warfare, so the developer could be planning to do something similar with whatever new game is planned. This is all conjecture though, and the tweet could just as easily be a tease for a brand new Call of Duty series that has nothing to do with Modern Warfare. And I appreciate that the Chad pointed out he wore that sticky sweet baklava. Again, my bad. Treyarch's 2018 Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was the first game in the franchise to not feature a traditional single-player campaign. Instead, Black Ops 4 included the franchise's first Battle Royale mode, titled Blackout. There has not been any kind of announcement on whether 2019's Call of Duty will implement either of those changes. And so you begin to see the formation of the rumors that lead up to E3, or at least around E3, whenever we will find out what the next Call of Duty is going to bring. And in my personal opinion, it would be a fantastic time to bring back Modern Warfare. But the question is, do we need a Modern Warfare 4? Is it time, really, in the eye of the public, to bring back Modern Warfare? Because including the fact that I love Modern Warfare and I loved what that franchise or sub-franchise did, it means that I'm a little bit biased. So whenever you're looking at the industry overall and you're trying to gauge whether or not it is a good time to bring back this specific line of Call of Duty games, I suppose you could say that it would be, because you begin to see people get burned out on the futuristic setting. You want to see a more modern setting because we did get burned out on that about 5 years back, and so you're beginning to see that kind of draw again. And we see that with a lot of Battlefield fans wanting to come back to a modern setting like we saw within Battlefield 4. Everybody loves that kind of setting, and it seems like one that is growing in popularity with each passing month. So we could be seeing that come from this year's Call of Duty. I could also equally see a Modern Warfare 2 remastered coming out in 2019. But with even that being taken into account, you also have to think, would they announce a remaster before they announce or even tease a brand new game? That one's still kind of up in the air. I don't believe that would be a good move on the marketing front. But I digress. I'm just a kid wearing a tie talking about video games, so who knows what's actually happening in the big, up in the corporate offices, etc. But what we do know is there is always going to be some kind of Call of Duty between October and November of the year, and so we're going to be getting that same kind of scenario in 2019, and I'm excited to see what it does. It's going to be a pretty good time, but we will find out in just a couple of weeks without a doubt. Now moving on to the next story of the day, Fallout 76's nuke codes have been hotfixed and a patch has been deployed, so you may continue your quest to drop bombs. So, the original story is as follows. Fallout 76 had an unexpectedly peaceful New Year's Day when players discovered the first major bug of 2019. Nuke codes were broken. Survivors searching for nuke codes in the wasteland on January the 1st discovered that they had not been reset, giving the post-apocalyptic West Virginia a respite from the nuclear attacks. Disabling nukes as a sort of New Year's armistice sounds like a nice way to kick off 2019, but this wasn't a planned event or a surprise from Bethesda. It's just another unanticipated issue, very much a regular day in Fallout 76 then. Bethesda confirmed it wasn't a scheduled event on Twitter yesterday, but there has been no official update since. However, there is now an update. Bethesda took Fallout 76 down for a bit today to fix the hotfix the no nukes issue that was reported. The servers are now back online and players are busy solving the new launch codes. And so, if you want to jump back in and nuke some people in Fallout 76, congratulations, you can. But I thought it was interesting to go ahead and talk about this today because it was funny. Whether it's planned or not, whenever you can't launch a nuke on New Year's and there's like this peaceful armistice, I don't know, I enjoyed it. So I wanted to talk about it here today. However, according to Steffi in the chat, we have, from what I've seen on Twitter, they are still kind of bugged. Again, they're still working on things and Fallout 76 is literally a rolling work in progress. It's one of those games that launched and it should have been classified as an early access title, if nothing more than to have a scapegoat as to why it hasn't been functioning in the way you would expect from a AAA game. But I digress. It is what it is, and the game is, again, what it is. But if you did want to jump in, at least they have been fixed somewhat if you did want to try and launch a nuke at the beginning of the year, depending on what you're into. I, for one, have not played Fallout 76. I've been busy with other games. In the future, will I go back to it? Perhaps. We'll see what happens with this, but I'm excited to see where the game does go because it has potential, not to get too far off the beaten path, to come back from the dark place that it has gotten to and to really make a ripple in the overall world if they do, patch a lot of the issues that players are having. And it seems like they are working on that as it goes, and I'll update you guys if there's any more issue with launching nukes. Of course, if there was actually a legitimate nuke launched, I wouldn't be updating you, but I digress. That was a joke that I went in on, and I regret doing that. But moving on to the next story of the day, the Xbox One has brand new games coming to Game Pass in additions for January 2019. Could be a pretty good lineup. It did have Xbox's / Microsoft's big games with gold / Game Pass lineup. That was a bunch of words and I wasn't sure where it was going. A little bit, boggled today. But the Xbox One games with gold lineup for January 2019 is already burning hot. With the new year, Microsoft released Game of the Year contender Celeste free for subscribers of Xbox Live Gold, as well as the backwards compatible Xbox 360 game Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. But as with previous months, there is more where that came from. And Wednesday morning, it was revealed that several more titles are coming to Game Pass, including 3 that are free to download starting on Thursday. 6 new Xbox One Game Pass titles are planned to release between January 3rd and the 10th, building off of the momentum of the announcements made in December. Life is Strange Part 1 will be one of January's new additions, and there are plenty more where that came from. You are going to be getting Life is Strange 2 Part 1, as we said, January 3rd, along with Ark Survival Evolved and Farming Simulator on January the 3rd as well. Now, January the 7th, you're going to be getting Absolver, and the brand new announcements for today are Just Cause 3 and Aftercharge coming on January the 10th. More games may yet to be announced for the rest of January, so stay tuned for more information in the weeks to come. And also, Xbox's offer of just $1 for new subscribers, first month of Game Pass, is still available for now, if you did want to dive in and give it a shot. And so the guys over at GameRate give you a little breakdown of each game mentioned here, but the ones that I would recommend if you do have Game Pass are Ark Survival Evolved, not the best game, but considering it's free, hey, I mean, it's free, you know what I'm saying? But on top of that, Just Cause 3 is just stupid fun. If you want to check out Just Cause 4, I would highly recommend giving Just Cause 3 a shot to see if it is even something you are interested in, because the games are so overwhelmingly similar in so many ways. Again, a lot of stuff added in Just Cause 4, but overall, the feel for it pretty much exactly identical. Absolver, I heard, was pretty good. Have not played it yet, but I do believe it was a PlayStation Plus game a couple of months ago, so who knows? I might get bored in February and jump in and give him a shot. Just kidding. Do you know how many things are coming out in February? You think I'm going to go back and play Absolver when I have Anthem? No. Nah, it's not happening. Anthem's coming out in February, right? Release date, yeah, February 22nd. No, I'm not going back and playing that. No. However, before we move on to the final story of the day, Domino in the chat, welcome on in. Glad to see you, and I am the kid in the tie. But moving on to the final story of the day, it looks like the very first Pokemon movie is getting a CGI remake. Happy Mew Year. Ew, that was a terrible, fantastic dad joke. But Pokemon fans are pouring over the teaser trailer for this year's Pokemon film Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution, set to open in Japan this July. This is, by the way, completely separate to 2019's other Pokemon film, the Deadpool starring Detective Pikachu. We've known this movie's title for a while, and it still has long sounded like a remake or a reimagining of the franchise's very first film, Pokemon the First Movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, released in Japan in 1998. Yesterday's teaser trailer has made the above theory even more certain. The 45-second teaser opens with footage of fans queuing for Pokemon the First Movie before text promising the legend is back. A brief clip of CGI footage then follows, showing Mewtwo and Mew flying through the air. The film's writer has been pegged as being Takeshi Shudo. Nailed it, despite his death in 2010. Shudo wrote the script for the first 3 Pokemon films alongside numerous episodes of the TV series, and it would make sense to credit him as writer here if the script is in fact the same. The most obvious conclusion? Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution is a CGI remake of the original film, and if so, it would be the first full remake in Pokemon's annual movie series, and its first fully CGI movie. And so again, if you did want to check out the full trailer, it's up on YouTube right now, but it is clearly teasing the remake of the Pokemon movie, and I'm not somebody who is into Pokemon. It never was my thing. Growing up, I was a SpongeBob kid. That's what's wrong with me today. But I know people love Pokemon. I have many friends that collected the cards, that played the games, that grew up glued to their Game Boys like kids glued to Fortnite on their mother's cell phones or iPads. But to see this coming back is, number one, fantastic for the longtime fans, because, as I said, I know tons of people are longtime fans, but more importantly, this is bringing a classic movie, in many eyes, to a new generation of fans of Pokemon, and that's very cool, because the earlier content for a lot of franchises, including Pokemon, is sometimes considered the best content in the entire franchise, movie line, whatever you want to call it, but could be a pretty good time if you did want to check out the classic Pokemon kind of thing. Now in the chat, Steffi says, "Gee, can't tell you were a fan of SpongeBob. Might be the tie." Apparently I'm SpongeBob. I'm SpongeBob now. But longtime fans will just eat it up. Little kids with their fork knife. Like kids with their fork knife, indeed. So if you did want to check out the brand new Pokemon movie, again, coming to Japan in July of 2019, and it could be coming west at some point at the latter half of the year, perhaps straight to DVD. Who knows what will actually happen with this one? But if there is one thing I know about the internet, it's that you can find a copy online, legally or illegally, depending on what route you want to go. Just kidding. You're all law-abiding citizens. I know you guys. I know you guys well enough, right? You're going to jail. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's show, and if you did, be sure to drop me a like down below if you are watching on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia. To those hanging out live in the chat, thank you guys for being here. And Steffi says, "I'm more excited for the Dragon Ball movie. I never watched anime as a kid growing up. Again, more of a SpongeBob guy, and Scooby-Doo, and Dexter's Laboratory, and stuff like that. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Yeah, that's some good stuff." But to those listening to the podcast service, I appreciate you guys as well, and I hope you do click that subscribe button, that feed button, whatever button you need to press to get this delivered to your ears on a daily basis. Click it, and be sure to come back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Caffeinate for Thursday, January the 3rd. But I will talk to you guys soon. Have a fantastic rest of the night, and peace.